All right, I finally got it. say no to that.
Hey Siri, turn on Do Not Disturb. Well, that's not going to work. Sorry, folks, I should have done that first. If I'm interrupted by a phone call or anything, I'll start streaming live again. Rookie mistake. Cash bar. No.
There's a tree. You need anything?
I don't think so.
A Coke or a beer or something?
I got one over there. Thank you. Want everybody to see that it's just beautiful outside.
Turn it up.
I'm going to improve the audio in just a moment.
One moment, please. The different things he did, he really lived a full life. And I think if we take nothing else home tonight, it should maybe be our goal to do that. Live a life like Carl had. A room that will end, a life that will end with a room of friends like this. Carl touched a lot of people's lives. And that's why you're here tonight. I don't know if you worked with him or worked with Eileen or just somehow encountered him in life, but it's pretty cool that you took time on your day to come here and celebrate Carl. And in a while, we're going to give people the opportunity to share stories about Carl, and I know I'm looking forward to that part because I didn't know Carl that well. And I know you guys did, and from what I've heard from the people I've talked to, he was an exceptional man. And I can't wait to know him a little better as I head out the door tonight. And Eileen asked me to kind of focus on two things here tonight. One of them being IndyCar and the kind of relationships or community that we build around that, a family, for those of you who really aren't involved in it. And the second thing was love. And to me, those two things go hand in hand. I mean, there's really no difference. We get involved in racing because we see these neat cars, or we're an engineer like Carl was, or all these different things going on, and somehow, eventually, we may end up in this IndyCar series where Carl ended up. And it's quite a big commitment, and I will tell you that it attracts the best of the best. I mean, it's like, right in the moment, I'm thinking of the Top Gun movie, you know, that anybody who is really driven and wants to figure things out, wants to challenge himself, that's where they eventually end up, and they love competition. And there's a phrase that comes to mind, it's actually from the Bible. It says, as iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another. And that's racing. Everybody there pushes himself to be the best. You try and be better than the next guy, but yet, just like Carl did, you'll also help others to be their best. You just hope your best is better than their best. But in doing all this, it builds relationships. And at IndyCar Ministry, we have a saying internally that we say racing builds relationships. And it really does. The way God just brings people together with a common interest. And for us, it's IndyCar racing, but for somebody else, it could be anything. I mean, you know, any interest you have, whether it's a target shooting or macrame, it doesn't matter. But people coming in community, building these strong relationships, like Carl had with a lot of you, and just celebrating life through that. And there's this account in the Bible with Jesus and a guy named Lazarus. They were real good friends. And I don't know how they became friends, but for our purposes, why don't we just say they were racing buddies? Jesus was a carpenter. Maybe Lazarus raced chariots, and Jesus was given the tweak of the week on his chariot. Well, as it comes to pass, one day Lazarus passes away, just like we all would. Jesus wasn't there, but they called him to come visit Lazarus. But they said, Jesus, you got here too late. And Lazarus died. And it says in John 11:35, it's the shortest verse in the Bible. It just says, Jesus wept. He wept because his friend died. He had a real good investment in this relationship, just like we do with Carl, just like God does with us. And it just shows us how invested he is in our life, that when we have a loss, that he cares about it. He wants to go through it with us and help us heal, help us remember, and like we're doing tonight, help us celebrate. And that's what's awesome, is that we do have the memory of this awesome life, this awesome person. And we just want to celebrate that tonight and enjoy Carl. That's what he would want, right? That's why we live. So people remember us and remember the good we did, the things we did. I look at all this stuff. I couldn't do half that stuff in my life. But yeah, he did it. Right? So I would love, like I said, I'd love to hear a little bit your stories of Carl, your personal experiences, that I might get to know him better. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Eileen, who's going to lead us through the next part of our celebration.
Well, most of you probably have already met Carl's family, but I am going to introduce them anyway. To my right is Julie. Julie is Carl's sister. All of Carl's family are very accomplished. Julie taught school for many years, and sometimes she taught the gifted children, really smart kids. K. Carl, we call him K. Carl because his name is Carl as well, but his name begins with a K, so we call him K. Carl. He was the editor of the local newspaper, the Paducah Sun. Then we have James. James is Carl's brother, and he is a veterinary vested with that being said, let's have a toast to our friend, our brother, my lover, and husband, Robert Paul Lennon Thank you, everyone, for coming. Oh, we're drinking wild turkey because that was his first job. He was the wild turkey engineer for the wild turkey facility.
I didn't realize it was that.
Wild turkey, because that was his distillery. That's where he started out. So now,
Brent, that woke up the demons from Friday. You should ask Brent how Friday went for him. Oh, don't worry. They're not, Jesus, those are not staying on the table. Those are coming out. We take it. Yeah. Straight uppers.
Irma, sit down. So here's one card, and then after that, I'm going to have James come up. I know he's got a story. This is from Joe and Linda Welch, Vince Welch's mother and father. Vince was the commentator for IndyCar for the 500 for many, many years now. His son Dylan's doing it. So this was their mother, father, Joe and Linda. And Joe and Linda used to come to the radio show that we frequented at McGilvery's every Thursday night, and we would sit with them and talk. And I had to go home, but that radio show is done now. Anyway, McGilvery's is where I met Carl. Chuck, where's Chuck? Chuck's daughter, Carrie, introduced me to Carl. Carl and another guy. And they were kind of both like vying for my interest. And then we found out that we had motorcycles in common. And I said, oh yeah, I got a Harley, and he had a Harley. And the other guy, who was also an engineer, goes, that's not fair. What do you mean? That's not fair. That's the way it is. But Carl and I hit it off right away, and Carrie goes, feel his arms, because he had hands filled up. So anyway, so then every Tuesday night we would go to the radio show. So this is what, I haven't read this, but this is what Linda and Joe said. We spent many great Tuesdays at McGilvery's discussing racing and politics. Lots of conversations about guns and ammo too, which you've noticed the shot glasses are from our Texas friends, Cindy and Elliot. Put your arms up there, guys. And if you notice, they're shotgun shells, so that goes along with Carl's theme. And we always said if war broke out, we would go to Carl. We so enjoyed talking to him and Eileen. Much love, Joe. Is there any other cards?
not be as worried about the echo as we may be about the roof coming down if I get too excited. Thanks a bunch, everybody, for being here. The vast majority, y'all, this is my first time meeting you, maybe first time just on Saturday at the races. But a few folks up from Paducah or points departed from Paducah from our youth are here. But many of y'all I just met for the first time, so all I can do is say thank you for being here. It's good to see. It's good to see so many who were such a big part of Carl's life once he got up here and got to doing the thing that he loved to do. Robert Carl Wenzel Jr. was the fourth child of Bertha Ferguson Wheeler, a fairly accomplished musician and voice major at the U of L, where she met Robert Carl Wenzel Sr., who was at the University of Louisville in the V-12 program, which was a military-based program recruiting brilliant young high school students to go through the engineering program for the war effort. That alone would be 2 or 3 chapters of a good book about our family, and particularly how it might have influenced Carl, who, of course, everyone here knows, became an engineer as well. In addition to keen minds and the dogged work ethic that our parents instilled in us, we got a real sense from both parents of what was right and how it was to do the right thing in life. And of the 4 of us, I would have to say that Carl took it to heart and made it. Another thing that influenced at least Carl and I was that we shipped off to Sewanee Academy as young high school students doing prep school there. And that had a very formative effect on us.
Yeah, just unfold it. Unfold it. I'm just trying to get a little bit better audio.
A story that I heard, because I think I was away at Sewanee. He was still in Paducah. Mother told me a story about they were just downtown. I think maybe parked the car to do some business. And there was a fella beating on a car with a woman inside, and it appeared that this man wanted to drag this woman out of the car into which she had locked herself, apparently to protect herself. And apparently, my mother says, Carl didn't hesitate. He opened the door, walked right across the street, and told that guy to get off. And if you spend much time with Carl, unless you're a big fella yourself, you might be intimidated. to note somebody who said he spent a little time working on his upper body strength. In his day, he intimidated me. Well, we were the beneficiary of being raised in a fairly, in my opinion, of course, a fairly idyllic place. The rolling hills outside of Paducah, things were clean. The fact that there was a uranium purification plant 15 miles away didn't seem to dawn on me too much. I didn't care at the time. But we were raised in a place that I think was just golden for us to develop into the people that we became, again, under the genetics and influence of our parents. And we had fun. Everybody wants to hear a funny story. The only one I can come up with, at least between Carl and I, was when we were, I would say, young, maybe even just pre-adolescent adolescent. And I don't know, I think y'all were already off at college. Our sisters are only slightly older, but old enough to be off at college when we were this age. And lo and behold, the TV networks started carrying Monty Python shows. Some of those were kind of risque. one movie-length show that came on and apparently got rerun enough times that Carl and I watched it, and I think he could recite the thing line for line. And we just had fun with Monty Python and the Holy Grail. And I can only remember one, but it's a good one. Oh, it's nothing but a silly rabbit. If you don't know the scene, you'll have to watch the movie and you'll get it. I have said that there's only one thing that you don't get better at with training and experience. And I think Carl figured out in his head that he could do both things and end up where he wanted to be. And I think we already know where that is. But just in case you didn't know so much about how he accomplished getting here, we started at Sewanee, and then we went kind of different directions going to college. But he eventually got his engineering degree from UK, for those University of Kentucky, for those of you who don't know. But I was just talking to some friends who were getting me the timeline right just here a little while ago. And while I thought it was maybe after or at another time, but while he was studying at UK, he was also helping run a Formula Atlantic team. And when he graduated, he got dare I say it, I call it a side gig. He got a full-time job at the Austin Nichols Distillery, which was, at the time, the owners of Wild Turkey Distillery. That's why we're drinking Wild Turkey tonight, amongst other things. So he was going to school. He was running a Formula Atlantic car. He earned money later on brewing whiskey, or really fitting pipes and keeping the cars running. And he, we couldn't figure out exactly when, but he also worked for a machine shop in Paducah. How much experience, remember I said education and experience? How much experience in what he later would do would be a valuable experience in working in a machine shop, where if a part broke and there's not one available, can you run down to a drill press and make another one? I bet you could. And that's just a few of the ones that I can think of that were formative in his education and experience that would have gotten him best prepared for when he got here. And then some of y'all can take over and tell me how he worked his way up from here. But I remember he started out as a wheelman, an engineer with all that experience, and he decided he'd work his way up he was a mechanic, and is a mechanic above or below a wheelman in the pit? Kind of the same? Okay, he was part of the team as a mechanic and a wheelman, maybe, and then worked his way up to the data engineer. Am I close on that? Yeah, which is what he was doing when they won the Indy in '96. But he didn't forget his roots. He was always back and forth helping our parents when they got on in years. He was back and forth helping them. So he was always in touch with and loved our family. And he loved you, Eileen, I think, more than anything. So I'll wrap up with, God forbid it would be verse, but it looks like it turned out close. So he was an engineer, but he was passionate. And he was a man of motion, but also of emotion, and with blood thicker than water, or maybe thicker than engine coolant. And he lived a life of doing the right thing. And sometimes later in life, the far right thing. And that deserves a nod, nod, wink, wink, say no more. That's it, my life. Thank y'all much for letting me say these words.
I'll tell one quick story. First of all, I wish to God he would have grown up by an Anheuser-Busch plant, because then I wouldn't have to do that shot. I still feel that. 2017 Brickyard 400, for those 5 people that were still in our suite at the end of the day, was the longest race in the history, I think, of NASCAR. Casey Kane won, and there must have been 5 failed starts to try to finish this race. Carl hated that race anyway. He only stayed, I think, because Eileen stayed. And Tammy would tell you that usually any big race, most people are still going to be there for you. This one, there were like 5 people left. And they kept trying to do green light checkers. Now, most people didn't know. I wouldn't be surprised if he carrying a gun in that picture. Because he was always carrying it. So it was getting dark. And I remember I looked at Carl, and I have said, if this thing goes yellow again, take that gun out and shoot me. And he said, I'll probably shoot myself first. And we laughed out loud. And then it went yellow, they waited until they hit the blend line and ended the race. So, because they were going to have to end it anyways, it's a good thing. But Carl was always good with those quick anecdotes, quick comments. We would see each other and just make jokes about this, jokes about that. We loved to talk drumming. He was big into percussion, so we would talk about a lot of drummers and stuff. And I heard a lot of music that was played, a lot of big drumming songs. So he was a great protector of the suite. Tammy would make comments about that. Carl would always keep an eye out on people. I don't remember too many times where Carl got overserved. There were a few. It does, maybe even like some of us last Friday. But Carl was always a great overseer of the suites. He worked with Eileen in the suite next door to the original suite that I had, and we all became partners in the suite that we're in now. And he's missed dearly, and it was tough. I know that last race, when it rained delayed last year, Carl wanted to go home, and Eileen didn't want to leave him, and he said, I will kick you out and lock the door. Go back, because I know you're going to be miserable here. And I think she was in a pretty good place when she came back. I know she hated that he wasn't there, but unfortunately, his health was, you could see it, it was failing. But he knew how much she loved that race. He got there for the start, but then when it rained delayed, he had had enough. But I remember Eileen, he told me that if you don't leave, I will throw your ass out of this house and lock the door. So leave. And she did. She came back. She had a great time. I felt like we just left that race about an hour ago. It was so long. But
and we texted each other through the whole race. He did strategy.
and that was the thing. Carl went home and basically acted like he was sitting on a pit wall. He would get his computer out. He would get his stopwatch out. He would, he did what he loved, which was fucking dating. And I think he kind of told her, that's what I'm going to do. You're going to be bored to death watching me do this, so get the hell out of here. And I didn't hear him tell her that, but I could see. And he was just a great friend. He was a great ambassador to us at the suite, and great with stories. Unfortunately, my race team didn't come tonight. They all decided to go to Kokomo, I think, and watch the high limit race. And he loved, especially Kirk Simpson, my team manager. They just adored each other, and they would tell stories after stories. I remember one year, I think both of them got really drunk telling stories, and I think between the two of them, they probably drank a case of beer.
One night?
Well, yeah, just at least one. And so, again, and Johnny, but that's a whole other story. But I took longer than I said I would, but he is greater than this, so.
Well, hello everybody. I'm glad you all came. I first met Carl in 1992. We were running Mark Smith out of Evergreen, Portland. We had probably the biggest budget anybody had in those days. And Carl came along and he was working with this group called Stack. It was one of the first acquisition systems. And we must have spent 2 days looking up all these little string pots and everything, and then ran the car that day. It was the first time we went back to the hotel, and I could actually see the suspension moving up and down, and how much it moved and everything. And to think that 4 years later, Carl's going to go and win 500 Buddy Missouri. I mean, he went a long ways in a really big hurry. And also at the end of '92, was before we had cell phones. My wife and I spent 7 days driving from Oregon. We went to Speedway, and Carl happened to live in Speedway. And I'm at a little Kroger off of 34th Street. And the only number I had called was Carl. And we had everything all packed up. I said, hey, do you think you could come over and help us unload? And it was already dark. It's like, it was our daughter's birthday that day, December 8th. Carl was over there, unloaded, filled up the whole house. We actually had our daughter's birthday party. 2 years later, Carl's there with his truck and helps him move out to Jamestown, where he's been for over 30 years. So he's moving to both places that we've ever lived. But the one thing about Carl is there's no truer friend. I mean, talk about a Southern gentleman who was faithful. He helped me a lot personally and my family. And I really miss him. And I know sometime there was a while there I was wondering if he was ever going to get married. And then he met you, and you guys have been out several times, and he just adored you. You were his life. And anyway, we just don't have people like that anymore. We need more. So, thank you all for coming.
Hi, everybody. I'm Owen Snyder. I've been working on IndyCar since probably 1980, and came along in the 90s, and not really going to tell a specific story about Carl, but I think just more the character of the man. So we're competitors. He was with a team, Himmelgarden Racing, who had won the Indy 500. And I worked for Eddie Cheek. Eddie wasn't a winner. We worked hard. We were competitors. And trying to teach Eddie, this is not getting off the subject, trying to teach Eddie how to race on ovals was quite the task. Came from Formula One, and he was a road racer and this and that, so the IRL starts. And Himmelgarden's Carl, Ronnie Dawes, Dennis LaCava, those were the three key players on that team. And we would go, it was really driver dependent. In other words, the driver, Buddy Lazier with Himmelgarden, and Eddie with his team, myself and a couple others are competing. And obviously, Buddy was an oval master. Very good race car driver, very good with setups, combined with Carl and Ronnie Dawes and Carl. They were always very competitive. We got lost at so many tracks. Eddie is Italian, so very excitable. The car's shit. I don't know what's wrong with it. Eddie, you gotta give us a little better feedback than that. So at the end of the days, nights, we'd look at setups and this and that. I would always go down to Himmelgarden and speak with Carl, with Ronnie Dawes, with Dennis. And we would almost, after every day of running, it didn't matter what track it was, maybe they needed help. For some reason, we hit it really well with Eddie, which 98 over here, we hit it pretty well enough to win. But I remember Richmond. Richmond was the track where, man, we were lost. We could not get around the track, and we're just slow. And the first night of practice, went over there, and I spent a lot of time. Carl walked through what he did, and Ronnie Dawes walked through what he did, and Dennis LaCava talked about the parts that were on the car, because there were always choices. And as competitive as we were, every night we could share that valuable information with each other, and got as much information out of Carl. He probably gave more than he got from us. But they were happy to do it. So that's unheard of in this day and age. It's so it's different. It's a business. It's corporate. It's 12 very rich car owners, and that's what they do for fun. It's a business. But back then, man, the camaraderie that we had and how you would help each other, I just, you can't explain that. How bad you want to beat that other team, but how much they actually help you out. And they helped us, like I say, I think a lot more than our team helped them, but they're more than happy to help out. So just another kind of example of Carl, of the man. Yeah, enjoyed it a lot. We'll definitely miss him. Those were good times. Thank you.
Don Markham's gonna have to come up at some point. Well, on that same, what you said, Owen, reminds me of some stories Carl had with Eddie. At the same time that they shared things, they also razzed each other a lot. And evidently, there was a time that they would put slots in the wings. Do you remember this, Owen? Mm-hmm. And then they outlawed it. And I think Eddie Cheever was like, Himmelgarn's still got slots in their wings. And so the official came over and said, you can't do this. So they went back and they fixed it and came back with, the guys back then would come out with a towel over their wing, and they'd push the car and the towel covering the wing, because that kind of stuff was a little bit secret. And they had painted slots. Do you remember this? They had painted slots on the wing, so it looked like they had them, but they didn't. And Eddie Cheever was coming over, hey, telling the official, they still have those slots. And they'd come up and be like, no, they don't. We don't have them. But they loved to tease Eddie. I guess there was another story about how they outlawed the carbon fiber brakes. You remember that? And how they got carbon fiber sticky tape and put it on their brakes so it looked like they had carbon fiber. And Eddie come over. Himmelgarn's still cheating. They got fiberglass brakes. And they tell the officials, no, we just stuck it on there to get Eddie's stroke. They had fun too, in addition to helping each other. And I think those kind of shenanigans went on continuously. But that's just a couple of them that I heard. It does sound a lot like Carl. So Bob Hildreth was on the Himmelgarn team, and he lives out in Colorado. For some of you might know Bob. He told me some stories that he wanted to share, and some of you may have heard this too. louder. Okay. So, you know, the engineers for the engine manufacturers are all British and stuff. And the techs are always trying to tell the teams what to do. And so they're always trying to push them to change their programs or this or that. And they get a little pushy sometimes. And Carl turned around to one of the engineers and said, "Look, we kicked your butt in 1776, and if I have to do it again, I'll do it." Yeah, to the engineer, the engine manufacturer. And then when they won, Buddy was in position fighting for the lead, and the Cosworth guy came over and told him to back off. He's redlining it. And he had dropped a gear and started getting on it because they told him, "You got enough fuel, go." And the Cosworth guy, you know, just told him, "Hey, you know, you really got to tell him to slow down. He's redlining. He's going to blow that thing up." And Carl said, "F you. Hey, buddy, we're trying to win a race here. Back off." Anyway, that was Carl, and then he won the race. He knew he was doing it, and he didn't blow it up. So then Bob also said whenever they were traveling, and they would get on their shuttle bus or the team bus, that he would always get up for the older people or the women and give them his seat. That was something he remembered about. And that's because he was a Southern gentleman. This table here can tell you that was his Southern upbringing. When I first met him, he always opened the doors for me, and I wasn't used to that. He'd come around and open the door, and I'd be like, okay. It took me a while to get used to that, but then I loved it. So, anyway, just some other stuff I thought of. Anybody else? Tammy? I can tell a story. Oh, go ahead. I can tell a story about what we got for actually.
I can talk about 10 or Tower 21, but that one. We can talk about it.
My name is Michael Blaze, and I didn't have the good fortune to know Carl, except for maybe the last 15 years since I've been going to the suite. I come all the way from Key West every year, and I kind of hang out in that suite thanks to these guys, and I love it. And it's like family. And Eileen and Carl have been looking out for me ever since I've been coming. And I think I'm on the opposite political spectrum from Carl, and he had no qualms about letting me know how long-headed he thought I was. But he was very respectful. He's a gentleman, and we both share a deep love for Indy 500. And going into that suite, it's like a family. And honestly, it's really hard. When you're going. So I just want to thank you all. It's a privilege to meet his family, and I will miss him a lot. So thank you.
Well, hi, I'm Jesus. I get really emotional, so I don't want to talk much. But it's just hard because I'm thinking about it. I had something ready, a picture for you. That's what I asked you. The guy didn't have it ready, so he sent me. But I miss Carl. This guy was something else. Every time he see me walking in, he will always make me very happy, very nice. Welcome my kids and everything. time I drive by, I think about it. I see the container, the bikes, and everything. Thank you everyone. Thank you for inviting me. I'm sorry that I got here kind of late, but I want to thank you. Thank you everyone.
Now, leave now. Listen.
Carl took me in, and I leaned to us, and they wanted us. We had partners in the street. And the first time they came to one of our races, I'm thinking, this is IndyCar here, so they won't work with these folks. Junk race cars, a quick race, and it's on his nose. We all never once looked at us, and respected what we did. We loved our little race cars. Basically, the resident set job over the race car. That's where you get your very first start. You work your way up where Buddy was here started, where Jacques was here started. And a lot of people are not started. Problem is, I started the other way, and I'm still doing it. But Carl loved to be around this race and never look at us any different than any other race and treat us the same. And Carl and I always had to meet when saying we love each other, which I hope I don't offend anybody. Basically, this was hello, and I love you, and I make sure you're not here. And the last thing Carl said, he was up in our suite, I was fixing to get my race car. He could barely get there to watch my race. And when he came to see the race the next time, and I was teasing, I had Jake Rich next to me. We're helping him do it to the heart's one. I said something like, you think you always do it or something? Pretty much he said it to do it, and Jake Rich got hit the floor laughing. Couldn't believe it. And a lot of people understand that, but that was a whole lot of love. I would always be who we were with each other. And I miss him every day. And I'm just so glad I got to be a part of his life for the short time that I was. Thank you.
Elliot found out about how we initially met before we were kind of together. Because Carl was looking at one of his cars and he thought it was the Zinc,
My dad's race car.
his dad's race car, and we never did figure out if it was that same car. So, Mom, do you know what happened to that car? You don't?
We could never find out. We had one of those.
We think Carl always felt like it was the same car.
Identical. When we looked at the pictures, it's identical to the one that he made. So.
That's how we started.
In my heart, it's always been a people show. And it's one of our special is not a race. That's safe.
No, it's not appropriate.
That's probably the best story there, is that they're not appropriate.
So I'm curious, so he did bring this all the time?
Yes, all the time.
Hence the inappropriate.
Yeah, and he would sneak it in all the time too. Wow. Not that anybody sneaks anything into the suite,
By the way, don't take these home when you get hungry. All right, wait a minute. Can I give it back to you?
I know. Once I found out you made him, I was like, oh, I don't have to steal it. It's great.
I'm bringing one to the suite.
Okay.
Am I
Okay, well, I can tell one that Tammy was involved in.
Oh, golf cart.
Whole family. I remember the first year that I went to Carl's family's house. He turned to me and said, don't try to keep up with our family because they can drink. And I didn't even try. I learned that pretty fast that they can drink. Wow. You can't tell. And so I never really saw Carl drunk ever except one night.
Fireball. You're welcome. There is a video. There is.
Should never be seen.
Those of you who've heard of Gary and Tony Bettenhausen, this is Gary's son Todd, who's videotaping for us today. And so we're sending it overseas to all the people that couldn't be here. So let him take your picture. Be nice.
I don't bite.
He doesn't bite. I caught it.
You know, the one thing that really strikes me hearing all these stories is how lucky we all were to be in that era of racing.
That era
when
was
people
special.
when people treated each other the way they did back
With
then.
respect.
I mean,
They had fun, but they worked hard.
every business changes, and racing has changed a lot. And you know, I'm glad we still have what we have. But man, I wouldn't trade. That era that, you know, at the Speedway from probably 80 to 96, 97,
yeah.
there'll never be anything else like it.
Well, the 50s and 60s was a type of racing too. And then the 80s and 90s,
Yeah.
I agree with you.
Yeah, the problem with the 50s and 60s was there was way too many funerals.
True. But I always said those men were real men. Anybody could strap themselves in a car with the
You had to want it really bad, didn't you? Okay, I'm gonna go show that car again real good before do you want me to stick live for a while, or do you want me to shut it down?
Well, maybe just go table to table or what have you. I don't think people will leave right away.
Okay. I'll make sure that I get the American flag, and you know, I got the side pod real nice. Okay.
With the Wenzel, his last name.
Okay, I'll get that. You kids want to say anything to our audience?
Doing a good job, Todd.
Doing the best I can, just winging it.
That was what it was.
How you doing, boss?
Yeah.
Been a little while. When are you coming to lunch again? No, we'll be there. I think we're going to be there on Fast Friday, which I think is unusual, but they're planning to. I don't know if I'll make it.
They can't get rid of it. Anyway, it's nice. Good. Yeah.
These lanterns will be flying through the air a little later. Hopefully we don't burn Speedway down. See, I have a confession to make. I'm not really this steady. I want to show you my secret weapon.
Oh, yeah.
See,
The gimbal.
I'm cheating.
You know, I bought Carl one of those, and he never got an opportunity to use it. And I'm going to have to find it.
This has been to a few sprint car races. It's kind of beat up, but it still works great.
Yeah, they're great.
I'm gonna go.
All right, thanks
Thank
for
you.
telling
Yep.
stories.
Yep. No, it was fun. It was fun. I loved your political thing. I thought it was fun because I did think some kind of, I don't know, you were one of the Carl never saw you. Saw you. You didn't think, oh, he was just but you probably thought the same. And the funny thing is,
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and sign off. This video will remain on YouTube, so tell everyone who didn't have a chance to see it tonight that they can come back and search for it the same way you all did, and it should be up there for as long as YouTube's around, I guess. So hope everybody enjoyed it. I was happy to be able to do it. Good night, everybody.